So let me take a guess. Right now, you are struggling researching and picking the best vlogging camera for the highest quality content. My name is Cameron Foose. Welcome to Iconic, the channel for digital entrepreneurs. Hit that subscribe and notification button for new content every week on how to grow your brand on social media while having the freedom to travel the world 24/7 with marketing automation. Be bold, be authentic, be iconic. So in today's competitive market of competing for attention, we need to be producing high quality content. In order to do that, we need the best vlogging camera. So in today's video, by the end, I'm gonna show you what I believe to be the current best vlogging camera with today's current tech. Now, I have been vlogging for many years. I've used low budget cameras, I've used high budget cameras, but in today's video, I'm gonna talk about the Canon EOS R. Before I dive into the Canon EOS R, I want to talk about two cameras that I used previously to switching over to the new Canon. Now, this is the Sony a7R III with the 16-35 2.8. Now, this is not a cheap camera. I believe that's almost $5 or $6 grand that I paid for this setup. Now, the pros of this is that it's got both IBIS, in-body stabilization, as well as stabilization. Is there stabilization on the lens? No. Just IBIS 5-axis on the camera. Now, this is a great vlogging camera, but it's pretty expensive, and the biggest downfall is that there's no flip screen. When you're vlogging, you kind of want that flip, right? Now, the camera that I was using previous to this was the GH5. Now, that camera produces some really, really crispy and buttery smooth, stable video. The problem with it is that we kept running into low light situations where every time we were in any sort of low light situation, the camera footage was completely grainy. So I eventually got the Sony AR3 due to that low light stability and has opted out of having that flip camera. But now that the Canon EOS R came out, I had to get rid of that Sony. How much was this camera?
Which one?
This one. $2,000. So now that that Sony got swept aside, this is the Canon EOS R. Now this is quite a beautiful looking camera. I'm actually really impressed. Now this is the Tokenized 14-20 f2 lens that we'll talk about after I talk about the camera. But overall, this is great. It's a 30 megapixel camera if you want to shoot still, so that's actually pretty solid. You can still get some pretty good crop with those photos, but some of the biggest pros here, one is that it shoots 4K, obviously. Number two, flip screen. Shooting and vlogging, you gotta have a flip screen, all right? Now, that was one of the biggest downfalls of the Sony that I hated, that I really didn't like. Now, the a6500 just came out with the flip screen, but you had to put a cage on it if you wanted to put a mic on it, which I really didn't want to do, which led to me buying the Canon EOS R because of the flip screen. A lot of times when I was shooting with the AR3, I had no idea if the footage I was shooting was in focus, if the settings were correct. We would shoot a bunch of stuff and then I would come back and look at the footage and be like, we got to reshoot the whole thing because I was out of focus or some of the settings were off. So having a flip screen for vlogging is a very clutch thing. Another big plus side here that I'm actually gonna pull in my iPhone so you guys can actually see what's going on from this angle over here. But, so this is kind of what's really great is that the facial recognition focus on this camera is extremely fast. It tracks your face extremely well, even in this dark studio that we have going on right now. The other part that's really cool is the digital, why are you cutting out at me? Digital stabilization, which you can easily just click this Q button. Now you can see movie digital stabilization. Now there's off, so that's gonna be your full focal length of the camera. Now there's no in-body stabilization on the camera or the lens, but clicking this Q button, we have two different modes of how much do you wanna have it stabilized while you are vlogging. So it's a really cool feature now that we're moving towards digital as opposed to having it actually on the lens or the camera. Another big pro of the camera is just the user interface. I really like the user interface of the Canon, just being able to quickly touch things on here to actually use. There's also what's really cool, if we can get this on the iPhone, if this will show us. Oh, no, that didn't work.
You can turn it off.
Oh, I need to turn the camera off. That's what'll do it. Is the auto sensor shut. Now, most cameras, when you take off the lens, you gotta put on the cap, and you wanna protect your sensor at all times. Now, but watch what happens with this. It automatically just closed. Look at that. It's closed. Now, is that cool, Norbert, or what?
It's called the shutter, by the way, that's closing down.
Yeah, the shutter. But that is a pretty cool pro. Keep your sensor nice, crispy, clean at all times. What's up, guys? Now those are some pretty cool pros, right? But clearly there's gonna be some cons that we need to talk about here as well, as I'm still shooting over here. One being that when you shoot 4K on this camera, you have a 1.7 times crop. Now, I can't give you the guaranteed factor results of what that is. Some say it's 1.8. The calculation is some sort of weird voodoo math. I don't really know. But, so this, for example, is a 14-20 f2 lens by Tokina. But once you put on the crop factor, it is roughly about a 23 to 33 millimeter lens. Okay, now that's still very good for vlogging. I do like those focal lengths, and I actually love this lens. But another con with that is, okay, so if we do want to put on the movie stabilization, as you can see here, now there's gonna be an additional crop in addition to that 1.7 for this mode. Now, if you really wanna stabilize, now we have an additional. I don't know what these numbers are, but now we're probably shooting at a 35 to 50 millimeter lens at the full stabilization camera. In addition to that, there's also the crop factor of the mount, because we're using a EF mount lens with the RF mount Canon camera, and so we have to have this mount. Now there is the RF mount lenses that are coming out. There's a 15 to 35 lens by Canon that's coming out soon, but it's probably gonna be $2,000 to $3,000. In addition, all of the RF mount lenses are massive, so it's gonna be extremely heavy. Now this camera lens, I believe, is about 750 grams, and the RF mount lenses are almost double that. So when you're vlogging and you're carrying something heavy all the time, like the Sigma 14-24, I don't know if this looks more like a telescope or a camera to you, but this is a wide angle lens with a cup holder as the lens cap, as you can see. In addition, this could be one of the biggest lenses and most heavy lenses that I could ever imagine. It's the heaviest lens I've ever used. We actually broke one of the bigger Manfrotto tripods because it was too heavy, and then I actually have it set like this because it can't support itself. That I had before this, which is a full frame lens, that was, I believe, about 1,400 grams, which in addition to this camera was unusable. So this camera literally sat around for almost 2 months, and I didn't do anything until I finally got this lens. Now this again is the f2 14-20 Tokina lens. This is their newest wide angle lens. There's also the 11-16 Tokina 2.8. There's also the 11-20 Tokina 2.8. But there's issues with both those lenses when it comes to vlogging. Mostly is the noise of autofocusing. Now you hear it, especially when you're using a lens or a microphone on board in your camera right above the autofocal point of the lens, you actually hear that. Now I initially purchased the 11-20 2.8 Tokina lens for this camera, thinking, okay, it's probably okay. The reviews seem like it's pretty good. But once I got it, the autofocus noise was just way too loud. Now the 14-20 f2 has a much lower aperture, so it does better in low light, but it also has a silent motor for focusing on it, so it's much, much quieter. It's not gonna be as quiet as a Canon high-end lens that's made for the camera, but as far as vlogging, as far as my testing goes, it's quiet enough to be a very high-performing lens, a very fast lens, does really great in low light, and a perfect focal length for vlogging. So I'm assuming you guys want to see this in action as an actual vlogging camera. So we're going to take this out to the beach We are here in my studio in Bali, and there's a black sand beach down the road that we're gonna get some motorcycles out, get the drone out, get some footage with the Blackmagic Pocket 4K that we're shooting on right now. But in addition, the last two things that we're using, this is the Manfrotto little tripod mount. This is my #1 recommended tripod selfie stick mount. And also this is the Video Mic Pro from Rode. The best thing about this thing is that it automatically turns on and off. So many times when I had the previous version of this or any other mic that you might be using, you might turn the camera on but forget to turn the microphone on. And again, you shoot a bunch of footage and you come back and realize you have no audio. I can't tell you how many times I did that. So the biggest benefit of this mic is it automatically turns on and off with the camera. All right guys, we're getting ready for the field test, leaving the villa where I've been living for the last 4 months. Rented this place for 6 months. He's cleaning the pool. Thank you very much, sir. But heading into the garage to get the whips. It's Norbert's whip. There's my whip. A little dirty, but it'll do, mate. I'm not bringing my helmet. Can't fuck up my hair for the photos. Hopefully we don't get pulled over. See you on the beach. All right, so we just got to the black sand beach for the first field test. I'm shooting in aperture priority mode at f2.0 at the first level of stabilization. So yeah, I'm running. How does this look on the stabilization test? But we actually came out here to get some drone footage. Norbert's gonna bust out here. We just got the Mavic 2 ready to shoot this up through.
I'm hot.
Boom. We'll show you guys a little bit of that to give you a little B-roll for this vlog, which brings me to probably the biggest con of this camera. Now, when you're shooting vlogs, a lot of time it's great to have some pretty quality B-roll inserted into your vlogs. One, drone footage is great, but two is having slow motion from your camera to shoot with. Now, the slow motion on the Canon EOS isn't that great. Now, you can only shoot 120 frames per second at 720p. You can shoot 60 frames per second at 1080. So that's kind of a problem, right? When you want to shoot slow-mo. The Sony AR3 was able to shoot 1080 at 120 frames per second. So we actually have the Blackmagic Pocket 4K that we're going to shoot some B-roll on as well. But as far as shooting B-roll on the Canon EOS R, kind of a problem. 120 frames per second at 720 when you're trying to shoot 4K vlogs. You can scale up, but not exactly what you want to do. But as far as this vlogging, getting this kind of content, this is bar none the best camera today in today's world. All right, guys, drone's flying. I'm gonna hop on my bike. There it is. Let's do it. So I almost crashed a few times, but that was the drone shot. Right now, I'm in on the full image stabilization zoom. And so this is at 14 millimeter on the lens, but I think that's about a 33 to 35 millimeter focal length after the 1.7 or 1.8 crop. But stabilization wise, walking around, this is the full mode of the image stabilization. Look at that. That is a large kite. Look how small they are. And then look how big that is. Christmas time in Bali. They bang a bunch of drums. It's kind of loud. Look at that bike though. I think it's pretty sick. Getting a BMW 9T. When I get back to LA, I'm getting a BMW 9T. What are you gonna get, Norbs?
Birds are pretty cool, I heard.
Birds? They're pretty quick. Very mobile. A little cheaper.
Take your bike every now and then. Just buy two.
So now we're gonna get some photos with the Sony AR3. Not that it has anything to do with vlogging, but the Sony AR3 with the 85 1.8. 1.4, the crispiest photos in the game. So one more con that we just figured out is that you can't shoot 1080 with an ASPC lens like we're shooting here, which is fine because we're only shooting 4K, with this, but if you want to shoot any 1080 slow-mo, or if you want to shoot the 720p at 100 frames per second, like we just showed you, there's gonna be a little ring around it, which is kind of a problem. But I shoot my vlogs in 4K, so I'm not ashamed. And then Norbert's over here shooting B-roll on the Blackmagic. Now I know that's above a lot of people's pay grade, but like I said, this isn't a B-roll camera. So what did you guys think about the field tests? Is this a camera that you would use? Is there a different lens that you would want to use on this? How did you think about the crop from the stabilization? Is that something that bothers you? Okay, I like it overall, but I would love to hear your comments about what you think about this camera in the comments below. So talking about content for a second, while putting out value will always trump quality, the amount of competition out there is getting pretty high. So that is why I put a little bit more money into getting a higher quality camera to produce content to actually stand out. Now, you don't need a high quality camera to produce great content, right? I use a bunch of low budget cameras. There's actually the new Sony RX100 VII and the new GX7 Mark III that both just came out. I'm interested really big in both those cameras. I actually used to shoot all my vlogs on the RX100 Mark V. All those cameras are great, but to produce the best quality content, to really stand out ahead of your competition, one, you need to be producing value over everything. And then after that, you want to start producing higher quality content. So you want to start building up your content with better quality cameras as you grow. Okay, so now that you know that I think the Canon EOS R with the Tokenized 14-20 f2 is the best vlogging camera in today's current market, you're probably wondering, what kind of content should you be creating? Now, I have a program called the Iconic Entrepreneur. It's a 90-day mentorship program teaching you exactly what type of content to create for your brand and for your industry. If you want to learn more about that, I got a free training, absolutely free. Link's gonna be below. Anyways, guys, that's it. The Canon EOS R. I love this thing. Catch you in the next video.